In the words of Walt Disney, all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Born on the 14th of December 1934, Shyam Benegal dared to have a dream. At a tender age of 12, when he got his first camera from his photographer father Sridhar B. Benegal, Shyam Benegal hasn't stopped feeding our hungry minds with the most wonderful cinema, documentaries, television shows, books et al. Being a proud recipient of various awards, his unmatched talent is as great as his humble personality. Travel with me through the journey of one of the finest filmmakers of all times, the legend Shyam Benegal, only on the Bollywood Dynasty.
You need to keep yourself abreast of many things, of books in terms of, for instance, if you look at the kind of books that I might have, they're not only works of fiction, they're works of history, they're works of contemporary politics, they're books on economics, the books on different subjects, anthropology, social anthropology, different kinds of things, linguistics. You will see books of different kinds because it also, for a filmmaker, you see, books are very important because when you look in terms of making a film on that subject, you must know that subject well enough to be able to make a film. If you don't know the subject well enough, there's no point in even attempting to make the film. It's important, which is why the books. There's a committee that has been formed by the government of India, and I happen to chair that committee, and we are working to see what kind of guidelines there should be, particularly in terms of certifying films. Now we have met. We have created a few drafts. We are working on them. It will take us a little time. We still have a little time before we make a presentation to the government. It keeps me very busy. It keeps all the other committee members also very busy as a result. But it will take a little time. So I'm not going to comment on anything at this moment until we actually have the report ready. I don't think there's very much difference. The only difference is probably there's more media coverage today than there used to be. We've always had national awards. National awards go back a long time. For the last 50, 60 years, we've been having national awards for films, for literature, for various other activities in arts and sciences. We've also had proper national awards for doing different kinds of things in your own different fields. Just now, there have been, like, say, for instance, Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, and so on. So those awards they were also there. They were instituted a long time ago, ever since India became independent. So annually these awards are there. They are given. Probably today they get a little more publicity than they used to. So I have nothing to comment on that. That's natural, and it is important that the country values the work of their own people, and therefore there are awards there. Whether it happens to be in film, the highest award, as you know, is Dada Saheb Phalke Award. Then there are other awards that you might give. Then, of course, nation itself gives awards. These are not the nation's awards, but the nation itself gives the awards, which is the Padma Shri, the Padma Bhushan, the Padma Vibhushan, and the Bharat Ratna. These are the nation's awards for achievement in various fields. That's a bit sad, but what can you do? This was one of the problems. What can you do? Everybody, they should be awarded. At least the nation needs to recognize their output, what they have given to the country, but unfortunately, when a person is not well, the person himself or herself may not be able to appreciate the award that has been given to them. But that is, there's nothing to be said on that. A film is both a commercial product and also an artistic object. It has two roles to play. One is that it is an art form, and B, it has commercial value. Now, when a person goes to make a film, he can either concentrate on one or the other or concentrate on both. It's up to them. How successful he or she is known only in these two areas. One is if the film does well in the marketplace, then you know that it was a successful film. Or it gets artistic recognition, you know that it's a successful film, but it may not necessarily make money. You see, so, but the important thing is that film is something that has two essential reasons for being made, because it costs a lot of money to make films. One, of course, it is an artistic object, but it's also something that is meant to have commercial value. You know, if it does not have commercial value, how can you make another film? Because the film has to cover its cost. It's important. Otherwise, there will be no industry. You know, you'll never be able to make another film again. Mandi was what one calls a dark comedy. It was not a film that was meant to depress you, because we were looking at something that is actually very serious and has serious consequences in society, but with a view to understand the humanity that lay behind it. You know, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is to condemnatory view, to condemn it. That's another view. So mine was not such a view. So you can make, I mean, it depends on what viewpoint you have. It really doesn't, you know, because different people view things differently. You know, many years ago, there was a film that B. Shantaram made way back in the 1930s, over 70 years ago. It was called Admi. You know, and Admi had, the story was of a policeman in love with a prostitute, you know. And in those days it was considered a very, very dramatic and very kind of film ahead of its time. You know, you have films of that nature. Everybody, see, a filmmaker will tackle social problems as much as he might simply want to entertain you. You know, it depends what the person wants to make. Because according to me, if you have the medium of film that you're working in and it reaches a very large number of people, it is good for the film to have some essential social purpose. You know, otherwise you're wasting the medium. At least that's how I think. I don't take long to make a film. Preparation takes a long time, meaning writing a film may take a long time, may take 6 months, may take a year, may take 2 years. But actual making of the film in terms of production time is normally never more than about 6 to 8 weeks. You know, and then post-production might take another 6 to 8 weeks. That's mechanical, isn't it? The main thing is what the creative inputs are, your own creative inputs, and then how you interpret it. The interpretation is when you're making the film. So there's a lot of mechanics involved there. There's camera, there's lighting, there's sound, there's all of that. The mechanics comes into it. But when you are actually sitting and writing, you're doing it on your own. You know, that can take any amount of time. Sometimes you have people who can write a film script in 10 days. Sometimes it takes 2 years or 3 years even, you know, before the idea works for a film. Well, I made Samvidhan. It was based on, partly made based on my own experience of what Parliament was. I do value the parliamentary system very much, because I think we have chosen correctly that our democracy is a parliamentary form of democracy. I think that's the right way to go as far as India It suits us because we are a very diverse community of people, and it is the parliamentary form of democracy that will stand us in very good stead. A little can be achieved, but a lot is achieved over a period of time. If there's continuity, if the thinking is agreed upon, and the manner in which the execution takes place, if those things work well, then a lot can be achieved. And the whole purpose is that, the whole attempt is that. And you vote in a government or you vote out a government on the basis of not only their promises, but their achievements also. You see, so that right is with you in a democracy. Your vote is there, so you should make your vote matter. I would primarily consider myself to be a filmmaker, so it's quite all right for me to think of myself as a filmmaker. So Shyam Benegal, filmmaker, is fine. The main thing is you have to look at the history of Indian cinema. In Indian cinema, we developed a certain kind of form that was unique to our own country. Nowhere else do you have a film where the story is told not only through the drama that takes place between characters, but also through song and dance. Even a very serious film, even if you made a film like Devdas, you will find that there are songs in them. Now, this is a form that we developed in our country, and this has a history. The history is that of our theatre, and our theatre is urban theatre, matlab शहर का जो theatre था, that had a certain form in which all stories were told with little bits of interludes of songs and dances from time to time. Now that was translated into the cinema, but nowhere else in the world are films made like that. This is the only country in the world. So historically this was what it was, but it has its own limitations. You could only make certain kinds of, give credibility, believability to only certain stories if you made it like that. For other stories you would have had to tell them without songs, without dances. So in particularly in 50s of course, when Satyajit Ray started making films, he started making films without making use of this song and dance format. And when he started making those films, that eventually became in some ways a movement, particularly in Bengal. And in the 1950s, what happened in Bengal started to happen in Kerala in 1960s. And it started to happen in other places like Karnataka and in Hindi cinema, particularly at the time when I started making films. Now, so naturally that kind of, that stream of filmmaking, everybody called it either new cinema, alternate cinema, or parallel cinema. They called these things. But what has happened over a period of time is that there is these kind of these lines that were drawn between two kinds of filmmaking they've started to blur. Because today it doesn't make any sense to use the same terminology. Because today people make different kinds of films, and our audiences have also become accustomed to seeing films of different kinds. You know, formerly they would only recognize a film when it had songs and dances. But all that has changed now, because also the extension of the media itself. There's been such a media explosion. So today not only are you seeing films in the cinema, you're seeing them on television, you're seeing them on YouTube, you're seeing them on your telephone. You know, so the manner in which films get communicated to you is available to you on any platform. And because of that, our acceptance of different kinds of film form has also grown. समझिए for many years, don't forget that there were only about 450 cinemas in the whole country for such a vast population. Now there are over 1,000 cinemas. Cinemas, I'm talking of proper cinemas. फिर multiplexes हैं शहरों में. all these things are there. Then of course media expansion is so great. Today, if you want to see a film, you don't have to go to the cinema house. As I said, you can see it on television at home. You can see it on a DVD. You can see it if you subscribe to a particular channel where they only show films. You can see films there. So, you know, the system, the methodology, everything has changed. And because of all of that, the acceptability of films has also changed quite dramatically from the way it was, let us say, when I started making films. Shashi was himself a very major star. He was also capable of getting other people into the film. For instance, if I were to go and want to take somebody at that time, like Rekha for instance, would have been more difficult for me. But because Shashi was there, it was easier for him to get Rekha into the film, because we wanted somebody like Rekha in the film with Kalyug, for instance. Similarly, you know, some people, because they happen to be superstars, it's easier for them to attract people in the film. It doesn't matter what kind of film you're making. But if I'm going to make a film without a big star, a lot of people would be reluctant to make certain kinds of films or be part of a film. It's always like that.